My name is Still Waters, and these are my stories. I am an experiencer of the phenomenon, an empath, a lucid dreamer, and a high consciousness traveler of other dimensions and alternate timelines that make up our universe. Over the past several years, I have awakened to a state of consciousness that has allowed me to glimpse into my simultaneous lives occurring in this universe. Like pages of a notepad, these alternate timelines are contained and exist simultaneously as one. And like the ink from a felt-tipped pen, my higher consciousness bleeds into these timelines night after night to experience these alternate timelines of my life. I do not pretend to know the purpose of these high consciousness experiences, only that they happen to me every night in full detail, and have decided to start writing them down and sharing them. Step into my world of awakening and enlightenment that I call the Chronicles of Still Waters. The following high consciousness experience you are about to enjoy is called Consecration Into The Phenomenon. Last night, I awakened in the dream state to find myself on the deck of a ship. It was the middle of the night, and a thick fog surrounded the vessel as it glided along the waterway. The glow of the incandescent bulbs lighting the deck I was standing on reflected off the fog surrounding us, creating an intimate and calming ambience. There were only a few people on this riverboat, and as I made my way to the rear of the vessel where the rest of the passengers were gathered, everyone there was mingling and enjoying each other's company. We all seemed to have been on this boat on our way to a destination for some sort of formal event. I had no clue where we were or how long it would take to get to the destination. No one around me looked familiar, but there was a strong sense of communion for those present. When dawn arrived, the fog that obscured the view of the shoreline was slowly beginning to lift. The riverboat signaled its horn as it began to slow down and rotate in the water towards the riverbank to dock. Through the fog, I could see a large dock that was approaching, and with exacting precision, the captain eased the riverboat into its berth. Shortly after the crew secured the riverboat to the dock, we were escorted off the boat towards a long stone stairway that led up to the top of the riverbank. Reaching the top of the riverbank, the view I saw was astonishing. Before me was a pasture surrounding a medieval castle. The pasture was filled with thousands of people, and a roar of cheers and applause greeted us as we emerged from the riverbank. I was not aware of what was going on. It seemed like this gathering of people had been waiting for our arrival to begin the ceremony. We continued to be escorted through the crowd towards the castle. As we walked among this enormous crowd, they created space for us to pass through as we made our way towards higher ground at the foot of the castle. The cheers at one point became almost deafening as we reached the summit of the hill. The morning sun started to pierce through the clouds, casting its gentle warmth over everyone. Almost on cue, the sunshine graced us with its presence for what was about to commence. At that moment, the trumpets blared from the top of the castle, announcing the ceremony was now underway. A silence came over the people gathered. It was mesmerizing to see so many people gathered that it was difficult for me to determine if we should be facing the crowd below us or look up towards the top of the castle, where everyone else's attention was focused on. The group that I was with on the hill was also perplexed about where to look. The trumpets faded, and a voice above us spoke loudly to those gathered. In a language unfamiliar to me, the priest spoke, and immediately following his short address to the crowd, everyone responded in unison. The response was a bit overwhelming to take in, and truly solidified that the ceremony we were in attendance for was quite significant, even sacred, as everyone bowed their heads. The voice from above us began to chant, almost singing the words coming out of his mouth. Hearing it brought me back to a time when I was a young altar boy in the Roman Catholic Church and hearing the priest's blessing to the congregation. I closed my eyes and got lost in that precious memory, and it brought tears to my eyes, feeling the overwhelming peace and love it brought back to me. In that moment, I felt a true sense of communion, not only with the group I had arrived with, but now with everyone gathered for this ceremony. When I opened my eyes, our guides that assisted us from the riverboat to this hill, were looking at me with glowing eyes and smiles on their faces. They too felt that spiritual connection awakened within me, and their reaction to my connection of the chanting seemed to provide them with all the confirmation they needed that my presence here today was validated and going to be very special for me. As the ceremony continued, it was difficult for us to see what was going on above us. The ceremony progressed, and each of us on the hill was given what seemed to be commemorative gifts to honor this special event. First, we were each crowned with a laurel wreath woven out of freshly cut leaves, and then a robe with ornate patterns was placed on us, followed by a tassel placed on top of the robe and over our shoulders. Once we were all outfitted with our ceremonial attire, a trumpet blared from where we were all standing, and the ceremony from on top of the castle had shifted its attention to where we were standing. An elder priest was assisted up on the hill where we were, and with him was an entourage of clerics, followed by a young boy holding a basket of scrolls. Not knowing the significance of what was about to transpire, I respected their presence and stood in silence and bowed my head when the priest began to speak. Lost in the foreign words he was speaking, I once again reflected on my time working in the church as an altar boy, and how much time had passed since then. I thought of all the good moments in my life, and all the challenges and hardships I have endured and overcome. While I was lost in those memories, I heard the priest calling out a list of names, and then I heard him call out my name in perfect English. Stunned by my name being called, I quickly opened my eyes, and before me a scroll with my name written on it had been called out by the priest as it was burned into two, removing the seal that had kept the scroll sealed for many years. The two pieces of the scroll were then ceremoniously taken and handed over to me as a memento of this consecration. As this concluded the ceremony, the crowd before us erupted into cheers and applause. Overwhelmed by this moment, I soon departed from this experience and alternate timeline, deeply moved by this consecration. I felt a deep sense of love, joy, and most of all, hope for humanity from what I felt was a place of divinity. Over the following weeks and months, I would be deeply impacted by what I had experienced, longing to feel the kinship I felt for those who gathered for the ceremony. For a moment of that experience, I truly felt I was among family, a spiritual family perhaps. What did it all mean, and how did this change my life from this consecration I had undergone in this high consciousness experience? Having grown up with a greater sense of the world around me, I was born with this sense of knowing that has allowed me to see through the noise that society is constantly creating to manipulate the consciousness of the world. In my early years, this ability to feel the emotional energy in the world around me would confuse and generate much anxiety within me. In later years, I would discover that having this ability meant that I was an empath. I was continually in conflict with the narrative that people in our society were attempting to portray, and struggled to remain authentic in an inauthentic world. Having the ability to see beyond the veil of deceit of society, it was difficult growing up to find my place in this world. Being able to spot a person's inauthenticity a mile away and calling them out to it when they used it to harm me or others, I would often find myself facing the consequences of speaking up and shining a light in dark corners. There was often no reward for calling someone out on their deceit, especially when so many around them remained oblivious to the manipulation upon their consciousness. Often, it would result in being ostracized by those who I raised a mirror towards and took offense to their own reflection. Not willing to be a part of a narrative of control and manipulation that harmed people would often result in attempts to make me out to appearing to be the bad guy or a threat in the group for speaking up as their way of deflecting the truth and playing the victim in some bizarre form of distraction. By remaining authentic to myself and those around me, such actions taken against me would only form a darker shadow upon those who chose to put a target on my back for attempting to defend the vulnerable from their intimidation. Being a beacon of light in a place of darkness would often be considered a threat to the inauthentic people I was among, because this illumination hurt their eyes. Depending how much pain it caused their ego, usually determined how harsh and swift the retribution would be for doing so. As much as these types of situations would repeat themselves in the form of life lessons, I simply could not dim my light from the pain and hardship that it caused me for being authentic in an inauthentic world. I would learn to find ease in that discomfort. I knew that from these experiences of being a light in the darkness, that it illuminated someone else's path into seeing the truth behind the lies and manipulation that suppressed their own consciousness and kept their spirit down. It would also gravitate me towards the genuine people in the world who valued authenticity as much as I did, and in doing so, raising the awareness of consciousness in this world to a higher level of clarity. There are many stories written about the conflicts of good versus evil, and even the inner conflicts within us to overcome the darkness that comes into our lives. Every day, someone is faced with this struggle of not losing hope in overcoming the challenges in their life. One of the greatest sins of this world is when someone is robbed of hope in their life by another human being. I have personally experienced this, and the trauma experienced from such an ordeal can have a lifelong impact on a person's soul and leave them in the abyss of being the victim to that trauma in perpetuity. Hope is a light in the darkness, and sometimes it is the only thing a person can rely on to make it through the darkest days of their life. Throughout my life's journey as an empath, I have personally experienced the deepest depths that the trauma of darkness can become in one's life. From that experience, I have learned that people will never comprehend the depth of your trauma unless they have had the opportunity to have experienced it themselves. Those who know, those who don't know never will. I have learned not to expect to be given respect from others who are ignorant of your trauma. I've learned not to expect your voice to be heard when you speak truth to power, because moral compasses are only given to those who have truly experienced the difference between right and wrong, and empathy is a bridge only crossed by those who have braved similar storms. Remaining authentic, staying true to yourself, and resisting the urge to let your trauma change who you are at your core has taught me through adversity we can grow stronger without losing sight of who we truly are. My awareness of this phenomenon we call consciousness has also grown stronger as I've grown older and experienced more life lessons. Through my experiences, I have learned how to harness this ability to help others. Being able to pick up on the emotions of others while doing this work of remaining authentic in the world, I would learn how grounding myself in nature would allow me to heal myself, to continue to heal others, and raise the awareness of consciousness in this world. In periods of solitude and meditation, I discovered that I could silence the noise society creates, which often disturbs the collective consciousness. By channeling my thoughts and feelings onto the pages of a journal, I learned firsthand the healing power of words. This cathartic process not only provided me with clarity, but also allowed me to heal, one word at a time. Since I began journaling, I have become more mindful of the power of words. Words not only possess the ability to uplift and inspire, but they also hold the power to be wielded as a tool for evil by those skilled in the art of deceit. As an empath, you truly sense that power of words when you can feel how they are being used to put someone down in a group and undermine their beliefs, or to paint a false narrative to support the actions taken by the author that may be construed as an offensive gesture in the world. All too often, people underestimate the power of words and how that impacts people's lives and the world around us. When was the last time someone has told you that they love you? How did that make you feel when you heard that? When was the last time you told someone you loved them? Maybe it's time we start using words for good than evil in our lives. It is through that awareness of the power of words that we discover a shift in consciousness in our life, and the world around us can be raised to a higher vibrational frequency of positivity, peace, love, and hope. Over the course of my life, with my innate gift of knowing, I would take on this habit of what I called planting seeds of change. be it from overt action taken in an environment that has grown numb to the value of respect, such as holding a door open for a stranger, to demonstrating a silent lesson of patience by waiting calmly for an elderly person holding up the line at a busy grocery store, or allowing a parent the grace of dealing with a crying baby with the morale support of a smile when they make eye contact with me. Being kind to one another costs us nothing to do, but yet we've seemed to have forgotten how to do it in today's society. By practicing these simple little gestures, not only was I receiving joy in pleasing a stranger with my respect, patience, and morale support, but I was also causing a ripple effect in the environment I was in and raising the positive vibrations of consciousness around me. Nothing is more gratifying than seeing a positive movement of consciousness that you have started being repeated by others. Planting seeds of change also would find its way into conversation. Using my empath abilities to read the room, I could quickly determine when something was shifting towards a more negative situation or conflict, and with the simple use of a question in a conversation, could quickly release the tension being created. One example of this was running into an elderly couple that appeared to be having a tense conversation at a gas station. I could tell they were tourists traveling in their car on a hot day and were having a heated conversation regarding their travels. It appeared to be some sort of concern over their navigation strategy, as they were looking over the road map on the hood of their car. The husband, who was driving, was clearly frustrated at the directions being provided, while the wife was upset with the lack of road signs to assist her in confirming their route. As I exited my car beside them in the parking lot, I could sense the tension was about to escalate into a full-blown argument. Living in the area they were traveling in, I knew I could be of some assistance, but knew before I could do that, I needed to somehow squelch this heated debate. I interrupted their conversation with a huge smile on my face and simply asked them how many years they had been married. Like throwing a cold bucket of water on them, they both were shocked at the odd question and in unison turned their heads towards me. I guess they were defenseless to my smile, and both said 39 years and smiled back after saying so. I guess the utter shock of a stranger observing their heated conversation demonstrated they had a lot of practice and confirmed that they had been married for many years. Reminding them that they were not only on a journey that day, but had also been on a journey in life for 39 years, had changed their consciousness immediately. I offered them the assistance they needed to get back on track during their road trip that day. When we parted ways, I had left them in much brighter spirits, both literally and figuratively. Some call these moments acts of kindness or paying it forward. I like to refer to them as planting seeds. I don't always get to see what they grow into when I sprinkle them into the awareness of consciousness in others, but I know that I've done so with authenticity, love, joy, and most importantly, hope. As I continued to reflect upon the consecration ceremony and my role in the participation in it, one day I quickly felt the amazing feeling of being blessed with the answer I had been seeking. Like one of those 3D puzzles, this message had always been in front of me, hidden in plain sight. Just like the seeds I had been planting my entire life, the answer I was seeking had been waiting for my perspective on life to change, to finally see it blossom before me when I had finally reached a level of consciousness to receive clarity to this awakening. Finding light in a world of darkness has become a constant battle for many today. Living a life in constant struggle in trying to maintain and build relationships with others, while trying to remain authentic in my decisions, has taught me many life lessons, both good and bad. This life's journey has led me down many paths and put me in alignment with greater challenges and obstacles that I have had to raise my level of consciousness to overcome and graduate to the next lesson. Nothing could possibly prepare me for experiencing the most painful, frustrating, and darkest moment in my life. That's the thing about life lessons. They never give you any warning when they are about to happen and teach you something about yourself. In my circumstance, what began as a rare and emergent medical condition would spiral me into the most painful and life-altering medical and betrayal trauma that I would experience in my entire life. It would take me 6 years to be able to sit in this discomfort and to find ease in this discomfort to allow my healing process to move forward from these distressing events in my life. The struggle of dealing with my emotions and doubting my intelligence when dealing with unconscionable actions that were taken against me shattered my ability to believe in the paradigms of compassion, safety, justice, and advocacy, and challenged my ability to put my trust in anyone after these tragic events. Believing that the basic human rights of compassion, safety, and justice that society prides itself in upholding would protect me from the harm I endured, would teach me a valuable lesson when they were put to the test and failed. When I reflect on the ordeal that I have survived, I see not only how negligent and damaging the support systems and advocates in our society that we all rely on failed me when I needed them the most, but also how through great adversity I was able to endure the abyss that it pushed me into, that almost completely consumed me in its darkness. This experience in my life has taught me many things about the transmutation process of transitioning from a victim to a survivor and developing the strength of carrying the burden of my trauma without it dragging me down a darker path in life and negatively impacting the world around me with anger and hate. This healing journey had shown me that to surrender being the victim to my trauma in perpetuity, I must also carry the peace and the forgiveness to my trauma within me, to let go of the resentment that was created and move forward in my life. When we are knocked down, bruised, and broken, the greatest victory is not in defeating our enemies who choose to cause us harm. It is having the strength and determination to stare into the abyss it places us in and conquering the darkness within us and transform our trauma into hope and turn our darkness into light. One of the hardest lessons that I learned in the healing process is that waiting for an apology to heal from the things no one ever apologized for is the greatest injury that we do to ourselves. It robs us of our time to get on with our life by spiraling us to perpetuate a cycle of coping, avoidance, and repeating the trauma in our mind. Our ability to get up and keep moving forward depends on us breaking that cycle of victimization and transforming into the role of a survivor. It's not about erasing the memory of trauma that was done to us. It's about ending the perpetual cycle of suffering in our minds that this trauma has triggered. Unfortunately, it is easier said than done, but it can be done. I learned that no one is going to dig us out of the hole we have been placed into, because no one can truly comprehend the depth of the trauma we have experienced. They can only shine a light on how we get out of it when we have the strength and determination to do so on our own. I learned that the healing process from trauma takes time, a lot of time, so we need to be patient with ourselves. There are no shortcuts in the healing journey, and you may need to rest along the way. And that is okay. Rest, recover, but keep moving forward. That's how winning is done. Through my ordeal, I learned that bad things happen to good people, and there is truly no justice in the world that will ever make us whole again. We will never be the same person we were prior to our trauma, because it happened, and we have grown from that experience. We will live with these scars, no matter how bright the sun shines down upon us. Look upon those scars as an earned badge of valor, because we have gone through an ordeal that has made us stronger by simply having the resilience to survive it. By remaining authentic and staying true to myself, I resisted the urge to let my trauma change who I am. Through adversity, I was able to grow stronger without losing sight of the core being that I am. Through this trauma, I had learned so much about myself as I struggled in this dark period. It taught me to no longer fear the darkness, but to embrace it and stand tall in its presence. I don't call upon the darkness to enter my life, but I have grown immensely from what it has taught me about myself. My participation in the consecration ceremony now made complete sense to me, and why I was blessed to have been called upon by the divine. It was my confirmation to the universe that I had passed the final test of my authenticity in transforming darkness into light. Unlocking this ability within me had allowed me to enter a higher level of consciousness with the divine and knowing that I have become aligned with my soul's purpose. to continue my life's journey in raising the awareness of consciousness among the people in the world, through my authenticity of bringing love, joy, and most importantly, hope to those who I am called upon to serve. This concludes my high consciousness experience of consecration into the phenomenon. This broadcast and the content is copyrighted, all rights reserved. No part of this media publication may be reproduced, distributed, or transmitted in any form or by any means, including electronic or mechanical methods, without the prior written consent of the copyright owner. This publication is a work of fiction. Names, characters, organizations, places, events, and incidents are either used in a fictitious manner or are fictional. Any resemblance to actual persons, living or dead, actual organizations, or actual events is purely coincidental. For rights and permissions, please contact the author.